Whatever time of day it is you're listening, I don't know. It's Friday. That's what I know. It is Friday. We can be a little looser on the phone lines. You can call in 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I know. I know. In fact, I just put this up on Twitter. I know there are a lot of progressives who think the Republicans are stuck on stupid, focusing on nonsensical issues, the cancellation of Dr. Seuss, the Mr. Potato Head stuff, hamburgers, Mother's Day, trans women in sports, all of that. They think this is all nonsensical stuff. We're dealing with the real issues. But there's a problem that I don't think progressives understand. I know a ton of people who are not political who cannot believe that the world, particularly the left, has gone to crazy town. I want to give you an example of this. There was a hearing yesterday on Capitol Hill and some other statements in the press. And the Democrats have stopped using, right in the lead up to Mother's Day, Democrats have stopped talking about women and mothers and are now using the phrase birthing people.
As we go into Mother's Day weekend, let us recommit our efforts and support to ensure that every birthing person across this nation is empowered and feels safe.
We have not created an infrastructure to support birthing people.
All pregnant and birthing people deserve to be treated with love.
Birthing while Black should not be a death sentence.
Health equity for Black birthing people is attainable.
Mothers and babies and Black birthing people are important.
We desperately need long-term fixes to support the healthcare needs of Black women and birthing people.
The most marginalized Black and Indigenous birthing people.
To systemically shift the way we approach health care for birthing people of color.
And respectful of Black women and birthing people.
The maternal mortality crisis among Black birthing people in the United States.
Black birthing people.
And birthing people.
For birthing people.
Black birthing people.
And our Black birthing persons. For all birthing persons in Louisiana.
That birthing people want doulas and midwives.
And support for birthing people during the postpartum period.
There are not enough Black workers of color, leaving Black birthing people with limited autonomy or opportunity to receive racially concordant care.
Protect Black birthing people and to save lives. Thank you, and I yield back.
What is a birthing person? What is a birthing person? A birthing person is a woman. And yet the same people who say Latinx, when no one in the Latino community does say that, the same people who say Latinx say birthing people now. Why? This, you need to actually truly understand why. Why are they going with birthing people? They're going with birthing people because that's what progressives want. They want to normalize and mainstream transgenderism. And in transgenderism, it's not just women who have babies. It is men who have babies too. Men and women can have babies. I gotta wonder what James Carville thinks about this stuff. You know, Carville went off the other day on the woke people, just infuriated by the faculty lounge conversations. And this is an example of it. The whole idea that we're going to stop calling people in the lead up to Mother's Day. Somehow we're not going to say women anymore. We're not going to say moms. We're going to say birthing people.
Now it doesn't hunt on several levels. First of all, it sounds, I call it the politics of the faculty lounge. And in my view, if you want to, in politics, you should speak the language of the people. You should speak clear, direct English and address people as they address each other, not like the humanities department at Amherst wants you to address everybody.
Is this the kind of an issue? Is this the kind of an issue, James, that is impossible to poll because people are going to lie to a pollster, but when they go in there and they close that curtain, they're going to do what they want to do?
I don't have to poll, all right? After the 2020 congressional elections, there was a huge eruption in the Democratic caucus where people correctly pointed out that this whole defund the police stuff cost us congressional seats. I can look at the voting results in the Rio Grande Valley. I can look at the voting results in Miami-Dade. I can relate conversations that I have with people every day. People don't want to live like this, scared to address an issue because it might come out the wrong way. And no one is using their language except for, some of our people on television. If you go to, and if you need wokeness, just go listen to NPR. Yeah, I leave it on my truck radio, so I'll never fall asleep.
Y'all, this is not a made up thing. This is not a made up thing. This is Democratic members of Congress. Democratic members of Congress doing this. Birthing people. Not women, not moms, birthing people. It is amazing that we have reached a point in the feminist revolution where we've gotten rid of women. There was a story in the newspaper today about the Olympics is going to have its first trans athlete. Now, let me ask you a question here. The Olympics is going to have its first trans athlete. Does that mean that it is a woman who wants to compete against men or a man who wants to compete against women? What do you think? I can tell you immediately. I don't even have to read the story to tell you it is inevitably about a man who can't compete against other men and so decides he's going to beat all the women. And sure enough, it's a weightlifter, a man who can't class and get to the Olympics as a man, so decided to get to the Olympics as a woman. And we're supposed to think this is great. It's heroic. No, it's a man who can't compete against men who wants to win and so is going to deprive some woman of a medal. What if he gets beat by a woman? And now we got Latinx. No one says Latinx except the academic leftists, and now birthing people. And, by the way, the left all the time says, all you people on the right, you're just focused on these crazy issues. We're focused on jobs and the economy. People actually care about these. I realize the left doesn't care about these issues, but I think a great many women who took the time to birth their children care that now suddenly the left won't call them a woman or a mom, but a birthing person as if it's their job. Hi, my name is Roberta, and my job is to birth people. Help wanted. We need birthing people. This is the nonsense of, and again, hey, there's actually a higher order point here. What did I tell you yesterday about critical theory? There are dominant discourses. The dominant discourses are those of the privileged elite who are considered the oppressor class. And the way you shut them up is you take away free speech and you bully and badger them into silence through stunts, performance, protest, and demonstration. And you use new words. When you can't change the definition of words, you use new words. And you require adherence to the new vocabulary. Why? Because language is where power and reality come from. And if you want to shape a new reality, you must change words. So we're changing the words from mom to birthing person. From pregnant person to birthing person. Because they've got to normalize transgenderism. And to normalize transgenderism, you have to get rid of well-settled biology that only a female gives birth. So we've got to shut all of that down. We've got to shut down biology. We've got to shut down science. And by the way, there is actually real-world fallout from this stuff. Can a woman get prostate cancer? No, a woman cannot get prostate cancer. Only a man can get prostate cancer. Only a man can get testicular cancer. So, you have a man who believes he's a woman and insists they put woman on all of the medical records, and they're not even going to think to look for a prostate or testicles to see what the problem is. Or are we now going to have to do whole body searches when you go in and you take your son in? And is your son now going to have a pap smear? They're going to demand. I mean, insurance is already making us pay for boys to have pap smears to spread out the cost. This is all subtle nuancing away, erasing the differences between men and women. Feminists for years wanted us to appreciate the differences between men and women. And now suddenly the differences are eroded and we have birthing people.
As we go into Mother's Day weekend, let us recommit our efforts and support to ensure that every birthing person across this nation is empowered and feels safe.
We have not created an infrastructure to support birthing people.
All pregnant and birthing people deserve to be treated with love.
Birthing while Black should not be a death sentence.
Health equity for Black birthing people is attainable.
Mothers and babies and Black birthing people are important.
We desperately need long-term fixes to support the healthcare needs of Black women and birthing people.
The most marginalized Black and Indigenous birthing people.
To systemically shift the way we approach health care for birthing people of color.
And respectful of Black women and birthing people.
The maternal mortality crisis among Black birthing people in the United States.
Black birthing people.
And birthing people.
For birthing people.
Black birthing people.
And our Black birthing persons. For all birthing persons in Louisiana.
That birthing people want doulas and midwives.
And support for birthing people during the postpartum period.
There are not enough Black workers of color, leaving Black birthing people with limited autonomy or opportunity to receive racially concordant care.
Protect Black birthing people and to save lives. Thank you, and I yield back.
You can follow Erick around social media at EW.
This hour of the program is brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan in Noonan, Georgia. The Frost family over there has been doing this since '93. It doesn't matter where you are in the nation. If you're listening to me in the United States, they can help your business grow. We're talking loans, access to capital, 6 figures and higher. They don't do small deals. They like to do big deals with you, but they want to help you grow. They've been a long-time sponsor of the program. They're really good people. They know how to do this. Spend 5 minutes with them, and if you need something maybe less than what they deal with for your business, this is only for businesses, not for individuals. They may be able to redirect you to someone good. Go to firstlibertyga.com, firstlibertyga.com. That's their website. Thanks to them for sponsoring the program. Well, hiring has sharply missed expectations. 266 new jobs added. Unemployment unexpectedly rose to 6.1%. Why? Because people are disincentivized to go back to work. I've got more to say on this later, but I want to talk about a Georgia-specific issue. I'm in Georgia. Most of my listeners are in Georgia. This is a story out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's relevant to every single person listening to me right now. The mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, Keisha Lance Bottoms, has decided not to seek re-election. She's a one-term mayor. The reason this matters to everyone is because she became an international celebrity and a potential vice presidential pick during the summer riots after the George Floyd situation. Keisha Lance Bottoms stood with the protesters against the police, allowed the vandalism, told the residents essentially you got to go home, mommed the crowd, went out there with the protesters, consoled them, let them yell at her, cried. And, at first it looked like this was working. But then she turned on the police, and she made the police the bad guys. And that skyrocketed her appeal on the left. She was considered first as a vice presidential pick. Then she was offered Secretary of Housing and Urban Development by the Biden administration. She was offered an ambassadorship. She turned it all down. She wanted to run for re-election in Atlanta, and she wanted to run for re-election on doing new things. And in doing those new things and approaching things in different ways, she made the situation worse. The city of Atlanta had for so long been known as the city too busy to hate. Atlanta, even though in the midst of the civil rights era with problems and segregation, tended to have a number of mayors who were very forward-thinking, progressive on racial issues, and began rapidly incorporating black citizens into local politics. Even as Georgia itself was resistant, Atlanta was pretty forward-thinking in it, and drew lots of resistance, but tried to build some level of racial harmony. And Mayor Bottoms comes in after generations of mayors, Republican and Democrat, who had strong ties to the business community, and begins to pour gasoline on and strike matches to the bridges that had bound those various interests in the city. The result is a crime wave. And the mayor of Atlanta has tried to claim it was because of COVID that other areas of the state and of Georgia and of the nation have seen a crime wave. That it wasn't her fault, it was the crime wave fault. But I'm sorry, it was actually her fault. She undermined the police. She, at every turn, wanted the police prosecuted for doing their job. She made them the bad guys. All of them quit. Most of them quit. Not all of them. Most of them quit. She did a terrible job keeping the people of Atlanta safe. And the woman who the national media treated as a hero was never really that engaged in the city the way the national press worked. Now, my point here, and the reason I talk about this, is because we get this a lot. The national media props up figures around the country who, if you only know them through the national media, you may think them some sort of grand celebrity. And so then you get the news that why is this person who everyone loves and adores not running for office? Well, because she's really not as popular as the national press wants to think. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Politics is a fickle beast. In the span of 2 years, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms has gone from one of Joe Biden's most prominent surrogates, important enough to get vetted as a VP, to abandoning what once was considered a shoe-in re-election bid. How did Bottoms go from turning down a cabinet post to turning down a chance for a second term? First, some background. After narrowly winning a runoff election 4 years ago, the mayor entered this cycle the odds-on favorite. But a 60% spike in homicides and accusations she had become disconnected from the community complicated her chances. In 2013, former Mayor Kasim Reed barely broke a sweat as he cruised to a re-election victory, scaring off any legitimate challengers. But despite Bottoms' institutional support, she's already drawn a range of credible opponents who insisted she was vulnerable. In a lengthy statement Thursday night, Bottoms nodded to an internal poll leaked to insiders at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that showed her with a 68% approval rating. She also noted her financial firepower, most notably a fundraiser headlined by Joe Biden at the end of March that raised more than $525,000. Is she afraid of competition? Never, Bottoms wrote of herself. I have engaged in several elections facing multiple candidates, and never once have I cowered from the competition. Bottoms posted her statement, framed as a letter to the city, at dearatl.com, which also featured a highly produced video of the mayor essentially saying goodbye to City Hall. What her statement lacked was any sort of explanation about why she's not running, so her allies are filling the void. They say she genuinely believed she could get a second term, but passed because she felt her motivation sapping. She just didn't have her heart in it. She most certainly did not have her heart in it. But here's the thing. The national media does this all the time. This isn't just a story of Atlanta. This is a story of the mayor of Portland, Oregon, who the media heralded as a hero against Donald Trump. This is the story of the governor of New York, who the media heralded as a hero against Donald Trump. This is the story of anyone who stands up and opposes. Remember the woman down in Puerto Rico who it turns out she was corrupt and hoarding stuff that was supposed to go to people for hurricane relief, but she liked to take shots at Donald Trump for the media loved her. Same with Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta. The national media vets these people, praises these people, builds these people up, and it turns out their own voters don't particularly care for them or they're scandal plagued, and you never hear about it. Hello there. Welcome back. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Caitlyn Jenner was on with Sean Hannity on Fox News last night. This is kind of bizarre. Let me read you, and forgive me, I won't correct the pronouns. Of course, you know, Caitlyn Jenner is not a woman, but is transgender, and the media, of course, decides we have to use preferred pronouns. GOP recall candidate Caitlyn Jenner may have played right into Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's hands when he lamented on Fox News that a neighboring private plane owner at his airport hangar is abandoning California because he can't take seeing homeless people anymore. In his first interview as a political candidate, Jenner told Fox News host Sean Hannity on Wednesday that he liked how former President Donald Trump shook up the system, supported his border wall effort, and hasn't agreed with anything President Joe Biden has done this year. But it was his plane anecdote that went viral. The guy right across, he was packing up his hangar, Jenner said during the sit-down, in his own Southern California plane hangar. And he says, I'm moving to Sedona, Arizona. I can't take it anymore. I can't walk down the street and see the homeless. In less than 24 hours, that comment has drawn more than 5 million views on Twitter and prompted a caustic string of rebukes, pot shots, and one-liners mocking the TV reality star as being out of touch. It raised the more serious question of whether, in one brief moment, the candidate disarmed one of the Republicans' most effective caricatures of the wealthy Democratic governor as a tone-deaf leader who dined at the French Laundry during the pandemic. I would think so. Who gets on television in their private plane hangar and says California is so bad the owner of the plane hangar across from me was packing up and moving to Sedona, Arizona because of all the homeless people? It was rather bizarre. By the way, it overshadows Kevin Falconer as well. Kevin Falconer. So a lot of the Trump team is surrounding Caitlyn Jenner. And there's actually a real credible Republican, Kevin Falconer, who could win. This is just it's a bizarre celebrity stunt, it seems. Jenner just seems at this point addicted to fame. And members of the Trump team surrounded him. And I guess, is Brad Parscale involved? Somebody from the Trump team is involved, trying to claim that Jenner is the Trump candidate. I have a hard time believing that. Clearly, when Kevin Falconer is a more credible candidate, but this certainly helps Gavin Newsom. Now, the media wisdom on the recall, to get there, we need to jump across the pond, so to speak. I want to talk about this. This is a story you're not going to care about. I know. I care about this story, and I want you to care about this story, because the story actually says a ton, not about this story, but about our own story in this country. The Tories, the Conservative Party in Great Britain, they have what are called by-elections. By-elections are, so you have the national parliamentary elections get called at least every 5 years. The prime minister can call them sooner than that, although now they fairly well codified the 5-year thing, and but is able to occasionally adjourn Parliament, get the Queen to consent to adjourn Parliament and call an election, and it happens. And the Tories, of course, with Boris Johnson, swept. Huge victory. And we've had Brexit. We've had the Brexit deal. Supposedly everyone is unhappy. It's a terrible deal. And now they've had the by-elections, which are essentially the elections for cities and town councils across Great Britain, and some Scottish parliamentary elections and Welsh parliamentary elections. And the Conservatives have done quite well. And the media you would have not known the Conservatives were going to do well in Great Britain because of the media. When David Cameron and Theresa May were prime minister in Great Britain, they were heralded for their cosmopolitan values, their support of the European Union, and their global stature, and their moderation. The American and international press may not have liked them because they were conservatives, but they were cosmopolitan, they were globalists, they were elite, they believed in all the right things that a conservative can believe in and get favorable press. Theresa May, of course, very famously called an election and expected to boost her numbers in Parliament so that she could secure her Brexit deal, and conservative support collapsed. They were barely able to get anything through, broken and battered. She had to step aside. Boris Johnson came in, and everyone in the press ridiculed Boris Johnson. Johnson has had landslide after landslide victory, and even now in Britain, the media routinely ridicules him, and yet he is able to do very, very well. In English councils in the by-election, the Tories have picked up 59 seats. The Labour Party, the chief Labour Party on the other side, is down 69 seats. It's not a good setup. They're still counting votes. They do paper ballots in Britain. Now, I talk about Britain because we need to go back to the media conventional wisdom here, and to Caitlyn Jenner, and to misunderstandings. I didn't intend to tie thematically this entire hour together, but you've got the people in this country who use the phrase Latinx. They're now using the phrase birthing people, and the media not only thinks it's no big deal, but largely embraces it. And in the media embracing it, and in the left using it, they think that it's no big deal. Everybody they know agrees with the terminology. How could you not, you bigot? They prop up nationally candidates like Keisha Lance Bottom, or they look on the ridicule. They look on and ridicule the recall in California. Who on earth would possibly go along with this? Gavin Newsom is awesome, and they keep missing it. They keep missing it because the media, by and large, is in a bubble. They're out to lunch. They are of the elite. And the elite, time and time again, are starting to be proven wrong. I mean, let's roll the tape, shall we? If you move the embassy to Jerusalem, you're going to start a war. Did it happen? If you recognize Israeli sovereignty and you get out of the Iran deal, you're going to spark a Middle Eastern war. Did it happen? You're never going to be able to get these individual Islamic countries to have peace deals with Israel. Really? If you get out of the Paris Climate Accord, it's going to make things so much worse. Really? Time and again. And let's remember, they ridiculed Mitt Romney back in 2012 for saying Russia was a geopolitical threat. 4 years before, suddenly they wanted us to believe the Russians stole the election. Really? Donald Trump will never win. Conservatives are over. Conservatives are a dying group. The Republican Party will never win major elections in this country again. All of these things we hear all the time from an elite media that it's a circle of jerks. They sit around with left-wing fantasies, and they get it wrong all the time. And it's not just here. It is a global issue. They have underestimated Boris Johnson in the UK constantly. They have laughed at him. They have lampooned him. They have ridiculed him. They have said he couldn't get a Brexit deal done. Everyone was unhappy with the Brexit deal. The latest deal was going to tear everything up. Labour was going to come sweeping back in Great Britain, and they've got it wrong. In this country, they say the days of the Republican Party are over. They've been saying the days of the Republican Party were over since Richard Nixon's election, because Demography is destiny. Things are changing, and the Republican Party is going to die. They, myself included, I didn't see Trump winning in 2016. The media overall completely didn't see it. And then, unlike me and them, when Trump won in 2016, I actually wrote at the time that it required all of us to understand what we got wrong and exercise some humility and what did we miss, because clearly we missed something. Other than I realized Hillary Clinton was deeply unpopular, I couldn't fathom people would vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I didn't support him in 2016 and ultimately decided I needed to reassess what was I missing? What was I out to lunch on? And what I was missing and what I was out to lunch on is I was too busy reading the front pages of the newspapers, which were in fact not giving me the full story of what was going on. And it forced me to do better and do more research and read more sources and dive deeper to understand there is a real discontent in this country and a deep distrust of experts, expertise, and the elite who frequently get things wrong. And unfortunately, we live in a country, and this is where I think a lot of it comes from, is there are a lot of real experts, and we need real experts on a lot of things. You don't want Joe Blow building a nuclear reactor. You want an actual expert who knows how to build a nuclear reactor. The problem is the nuclear reactor expert goes on CNN and starts mouthing off about politics as if they're an expert on politics. And they devalue and decredit themselves. There's no recognition of humility. And that, I think, is the underlying issue in all of this. There really is no humility in the media anymore. They continue to get stories wrong, like the Rudy Giuliani story last week or earlier this week. There's no underlying humility. They believe the world is so, and all evidence to the contrary must be ignored as some sort of partisan right-wing spin. They dismissed the recall of Gavin Newsom, though while being right about this Caitlyn Jenner interview was bizarre, they miss the nuances of the recall, the pain of small businesses, the frustration of people in California. They don't understand the anxiety of parents in Northern Virginia whose kids can't go back to school because local school boards, despite all the evidence, are refusing to let them go back to school. They miss the outrage of the employers and the employees who've taken the time to go back to work, that the slackers are still out there collecting unemployment and not going back to work, making everybody else's job harder. And the media covers for the Democrats say, well, this isn't really contributing. People need this money. These people are out to lunch. They have no idea. These are the people who use Latinx. These are the people who listen to Democrats using the phrase birthing people instead of mothers in the run-up to Mother's Day and see nothing wrong with it and wonder, why aren't the rest of you people wise enough and open-minded enough and tolerant enough to use birthing person? Because a man may get pregnant and have a period. The rest of us are looking at it and thinking, what the hell is going on? What's going on is a progressive elite who set cultural opinion in a country where most of the people aren't down with it, but the cultural elite in this country make up not just an elite, wealthy class of people, but also the reporter class that increasingly doesn't understand the rest of us. And so they live in a bubble. And in that bubble, they believe the world works in a way the world doesn't actually work. And they think the rest of us live in a bubble and believe the world doesn't work in the way it actually works. But the way the world actually works, we realize it, we recognize it, we talk about it, and the way the world works, it actually works the way we say it does. And the media looks at that and says, no, impossible. It's an anomaly. It's an anomaly Donald Trump won. It's an anomaly. It's an anomaly that the Republicans weren't devastated in 2020. It's an anomaly. Just wait another 2 years, the Republican days are doomed. Because that's what my politically elite bubble friends tell me. And that actually gives conservatives, whether they're in Great Britain or France or here or wherever, gives them some bit of an advantage. because the left is so convinced in their bubble the world works in a way it doesn't actually work. They never see us coming, and we keep actually winning. And so I would tell you, don't lose heart, don't lose faith, don't get discouraged, don't get angry. Be happy warriors and laugh at this nonsense. Laugh at the birthing people. Ben Shapiro, let me read you a tweet from Ben Shapiro, because he makes a really good point. And it's a point I think a lot of people, well, not only do they miss it, but they scoffed at Shapiro for making the point yesterday. And it highlights perfectly the grand divide in the country right now. This is Shapiro, according to the left, birthing persons gestate meaningless clusters of cells, which are assigned sex at birth and only later decide their gender. But somehow you're the culture war aggressor if you deny any element of this utterly insane BS. My favorite game is the "why are you even paying attention to this" routine, where you notice the radical redefinition of basic human biology. We're noticing because, as stated, you're insisting that society speak lies about fundamental truth. Yes. That's it exactly. And so we keep pulling the wool over their eyes, or they keep pulling the wool over their own eyes, and we keep surprising them and dazzling them and winning, and it makes them angry that we're winning, and so they have to score. Well, they're a minority party. Well, we're winning under the rules set, which is why they have to destabilize the whole system. That's why they have to devalue it, discredit it, say it's immoral, say it's the founding fathers were all a bunch of slaveholders advancing slavery so they can discredit the whole thing and try to undermine it. But they can't help themselves in pushing the boundaries beyond into areas no one wants to go. And voters are voting because their culture's under attack. They think neither party can fix or harm the economy so much, but they see one party destroying not just their community, but their culture. And they're standing up, black, white, Hispanic, standing up, and they're voting Republican now. And the Democrats can't understand what's going on.
Want to be on the show? Call Erick now at 877.
Hi there. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. By the way, on all our global elite complaining about the United States and greenhouse gas emissions, global warming and the like, and how we ourselves need to cut our emissions by 50% in the next 10 years and give up beef, become vegetarians, walk everywhere, live in big cities despite a pandemic. Chinese greenhouse gas emissions now larger than those of developed countries combined, according to the Washington Post. China now accounts for 27% of global emissions, while the United States accounts for 11%. China's greenhouse gas emissions in 2019 surpassed those of the United States and the developed world combined, according to an analysis published Thursday by the research firm Rhodium Group. China's share of global emissions rose to 27% of the world's total, while the United States remained the second largest emitter at 11%. India's share came third at 6.6%, edging out the 27 nations in the European Union, which accounted for 6.4%, the report found. China, India, and other developing nations have long noted that over the past century, the United States and Europe grew their economies while generating massive amounts of greenhouse gases, and that requiring the developing world to clamp down on emissions as they industrialize and bring millions of citizens into the middle class is unfair. But with the effects of climate change intensifying and pressure growing for countries to do more to hit the targets of the Paris Climate Accord, the developed world has sought to make China, India, and other developing nations a central part of the global push to restrict emissions for the sake of the planet. Those emissions include 6 key gases, as well as changes resulting from deforestation and land use. So it's not us. It's not our fault. In fact, our emissions today are less than they were in the year 2000. We've been doing a very good job in this country. And yet, still, the left demands we do more. Essentially, they don't want us to be able to compete anymore. If you were the Chinese, wouldn't you be funding the environmentalist movement in the United States and Europe? Wouldn't you be subsidizing Greta Thunberg to go around the world on a boat and scowl at white liberal elites and tell them stop doing what you're doing, all the while China ignores them? I don't know that China's doing that. If I were the dictator of China, I sure as heck would be propping up these left-wing causes in the West that demand the West scuttle their economies, ruin their development, and stop building out their militaries in the name of saving the planet. I would totally be doing that. It seems a logical thing that you would do if you were China. You want to grow and be more powerful and see the other side weaken. Why not pay people to advocate for weakening themselves? And you'll notice Joe Biden is going along with the weakening by demanding we make draconian cuts in this country, all while China refuses. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Y'all, if you weren't here in the last hour, I'm going to replay this montage from this Capitol Hill hearing of these members of Congress. These are the progressive Democrats. They were having a hearing on healthcare in black communities and the like, and they no longer use the word woman. They use the word birthing people. These are the same people who use the word Latinx when no one in the Latino community does. And a number of you are having a hard time believing this is real. It actually is very real.
As we go into Mother's Day weekend, let us recommit our efforts and support to ensure that every birthing person across this nation is empowered and feels safe.
We have not created an infrastructure to support birthing people.
All pregnant and birthing people deserve to be treated with love.
Birthing while Black should not be a death sentence.
Health equity for Black birthing people is attainable.
Mothers and babies and Black birthing people are important.
We desperately need long-term fixes to support the healthcare needs of Black women and birthing people.
The most marginalized Black and Indigenous birthing people.
To systemically shift the way we approach health care for birthing people of color.
And respectful of Black women and birthing people.
The maternal mortality crisis among Black birthing people in the United States.
Black birthing people.
And birthing people.
For birthing people.
Black birthing people.
And our Black birthing persons. For all birthing persons in Louisiana.
That birthing people want doulas and midwives.
And support for birthing people during the postpartum period.
There are not enough Black workers of color, leaving Black birthing people with limited autonomy or opportunity to receive racially concordant care.
Protect Black birthing people and to save lives. Thank you, and I yield back.
That was an actual congressional hearing where the Democrats now use the phrase birthing people to talk about moms. Happy Birthing People Day, folks. Let's go to the phones on this very issue. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hey, Eric, thanks. I'm enjoying the show, as always. And I had a point I wanted to make about the birthing people language.
Yeah.
It's easy to go and look at that and think about the gender-inclusive nonsense that the left is trying to do. But it also highlights the left's desire to destroy the individual for the sake of the collective. If you're a mom, you have an identity. You know, you have an identity as a mom to these kids. Whereas if you're a birthing person, you can be just anybody in that collective society.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, it does very much do that. If you're a mom signals you're just connected. You're connected to a child. But if you're a birthing person, well, you've just pushed a child out and moved on. It's very creepy. Right. I mean, they have you read hopefully you haven't seen, I don't know, the Handmaid's Tale nonsense. It's a terrible, terrible book, and yet the left loves it. And it's essentially, you've got birthing people. You've got these women who their job is essentially to give birth. And the left always wants to say it's Donald Trump and the right making us this Gilead place or whatever out of that book. And yet here's the left devaluing women and turning them into birthing people. It's a job function. It's a biological function. You've got poop people and pee people, and you got birthing people. That's a very good point on the collective, Chris. Thank you very much for the phone call. Have a great weekend. It really does. It takes out the collective nonsense. Speaking of the collective nonsense that's out there right now, y'all, the economy is actually not doing well. And it's the biggest miss we have seen in the economy, in the jobs report in a very long time. Here's the coverage from CNBC.
Let's get to Steve because he's got the number. Okay, good, 1.08. Steve, the number.
Wow, it just came across. Give me a second here. We have the number here. Just came across. Sorry about that. It came across very quickly here. It looks like 266,000. It looks like it was a big disappointment at 266, but maybe I have that wrong. Let me double check the Bureau website here. 1 second. Yes, 266 is correct. Unemployment little change is 6.1%. So we have some issues here.
266,000.
Long-term unemployed.
Big revision.
Yes, that's what I'm.
Last
do you
month,
not hear me there?
770 versus 916. Yes. Minus 78,000 on the revision. If we look at manufacturing, change in private payrolls, it was only 218,000. Manufacturing minus 18,000. The unemployment rate went up to 6.1. Average hourly earnings rocketing up 0.7. Year over year up 0.3 on earnings. And average work week strong 35. And here we go 61.7 on the labor force participation rate.
That's not good. Not good at all, as a matter of fact. This is how bad it is. Listen to this commentary on CNBC.
That you really have helped our viewers understand. We'll get to Roku, Live Nation, of course, Peloton, Beyond Meat, and a bunch of others as futures have moved around a bit on that big miss on jobs. Worst miss, we're told, since 98. We're back.
The worst miss on jobs since 1998. In the Biden economy. I'm sure they'll find a way to blame Donald Trump for this stuff, by the way. I'm sure they will find a way to blame Donald Trump. South Carolina has joined Montana in rejecting federal benefits. It turns out that the economy is 7 million workers short to get the economy going again. We have high unemployment. We're having an increasing flow of labor, and this is part of the problem here. There are people going back into the workforce right now. We have the worst miss in unemployment numbers since 1998. Unemployment has gone back up a little bit. Only 200 some odd thousand jobs created. They revised down last month's numbers from 900,000 to 700,000. And the people who are going back to work are people who are in white-collar jobs, more or less, and some blue-collar industrial jobs. It's the service industry that's still struggling to get people back. Uber and Lyft are raising prices because they can't get they can't get people to drive. And it is the unemployment benefit from the federal government that is impacting this. And the left, of course, won't get rid of it because the left advocates a universal basic income, and they view this unemployment benefit as a backdoor to a universal basic income. The result of which is they're going to keep it, and it's going to keep people from going back to work, and that's going to cause wages to rise as the employers have to raise rates to bring people back, which the left thinks is a good thing. But that's going to cause a spillover effect and the prices going up. That's going to cause inflation. That's going to force the Fed to raise interest rates, and that is going to spark a financial crisis in this country. People are disincentivized to go back to work. The result is South Carolina is now the second state after Montana to reject the federal unemployment extension. They've decided that they're not going to continue to subsidize unemployment for people because they need people to go back to work. But also there's this. This is from the New York Times. The American jobs engine slowed markedly last month, confounding rosy forecasts of the pace of the recovery and sharpening debates over how best to revive a labor market that was severely weakened by the coronavirus. Employers added 266,000 jobs in April, the government reported Friday morning, far below the vigorous gains registered in March. The jobless rate rose to 6.1% as more people rejoined the labor force. They fell out, and now they're starting to come back and look for jobs, and it's causing the employment to go up. But it turns out it's easier to put an economy into a coma than wake it up. Diane Swonk, chief economist for the accounting firm Grant Thornton, said, "It's understandable. It's going to take time." The Alliance for American Manufacturing blames supply chain problems for the loss of 18,000 jobs in the sector, noting in particular the impact that a shortage of semiconductors has had on the automotive industry. And many offices are not yet ready to reopen fully. Ben Herzon, executive director of U.S. economics at the financial services company IHS Markit, agreed. A single report with unexpected weakness in job gains is not a cause for concern. Demand is picking up. Activity is picking up. But there's a problem. One reason some people aren't going back into the workforce is childcare responsibilities. Their kids are still home. In blue states and Democratic states, families can't go back to work because there's nobody to take care of the kids. They need the schools to babysit the kids. But also, there's the overly generous government jobless benefits, including a temporary $300 a week federal stipend, part of the emergency pandemic relief plan that isn't going to expire until September. We're having labor shortages, and as well, we've got the issue of going back to the office. When are people going to go back to the office? It's time to go back to the office. This is Scott Gottlieb. He was on with Shepard Smith last night. Listen to this.
We've seen all the data. It looks fantastic. Doctor, at this rate, if things fall our way with the vaccines, when do you think the CDC can have a meaningful conversation about lifting the mask mandates indoors?
I think we can do it right around now. I think we should start lifting these restrictions as aggressively as we put them in. We need to preserve the credibility of public health officials to perhaps re-implement some of these provisions as we get into next winter if we do start seeing outbreaks again. I think the only way to earn public credibility is to demonstrate that you're willing to relax these provisions when the situation improves. That's what gives you the credibility to implement them when things worsen. So I think as we get into May, as we see prevalence levels start to decline even further, especially if you're in environments where you know you have a high prevalence of vaccination, where you have a lot of vaccinated people, I don't think you have to continue these mask mandates.
Since you say that, I'm fully vaccinated. Everybody on my team in this building is fully vaccinated. We still distance. We still wear masks at every moment that I'm not sitting out here and way distanced. Should we be taking our masks off? Do we not need to wear those anymore?
I think over the course of this month, we're going to see the picture improve sharply enough that by the end of the month, we're going to be lifting these mask mandates. Certainly outdoors, but I think you're going to start to see municipalities lift the mask mandates for indoors as well. Certainly as we get into towards the end of May and into June, I think it's going to be self-evident that the prevalence has declined to levels where the risk just isn't what it was.
Yes, it's time to lift the mask mandate. I'm an advocate of masks, or I was, not anymore. I'm vaccinated. I should be able to live without a mask. We got to reopen businesses. Stop disincentivizing people from going back to work. We got to get kids back in school. They're falling behind. Zoom is no substitute for in-person learning. Zoom is no substitute for in-person meeting. People need to be in their offices. It's time to open offices now. It is time to get people back to work. It's time to get America going again. The Biden administration seems fearful and held hostage by union interests and labor rights groups. The media does not complain because the media was so opposed to Donald Trump, and they are so held hostage within the blue bubble as well that they see nothing wrong with it. The economic data is a big warning sign. The economy is not growing the way they thought it was. Jobs are not coming back the way they thought it was. South Carolina and Montana are getting rid of the federal labor benefit. Ron DeSantis this morning is signaling he might. I suspect you'll find Texas, Georgia, and other states soon, red states, Republican states that want to get their economies going, they soon will stop taking the federal labor benefit. They should if they can. People have been disincentivized from going back to work. It's time to get people back to the office. It's time to open doors. It's time to get America going again. And the Biden administration seems incapable or unwilling to do it because of conflicting interests within the Biden administration. And that's going to have long-term ramifications. And their big spending package is going to spark inflation, and that's going to be a whole other bag of worms. In fact, there's some troubling data out there on the commodity prices, in addition to the job situation and the asset risks that the Federal Reserve is starting to warn about that could, in fact, cause a market crash. And no one in the Biden administration seems to be paying attention to any of this or even care about it.
You can follow Erick around social media at EW.
Today is the day the offer expires. Friends, it's time to go to Eden Pure because you can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifiers for $187. That's $200 discount, and shipping is free. If you don't know what the Thunderstorm air purifier is, it is a portable air purifier, small. You can hold it in your hand. You can run it in your car. You can run it, plug it into the wall. You can use a USB charger. It has no filter. You do not have to buy filters. You do not have to replace filters, and it just works. It really does work. We use them in our house. It gets rid of the odors when we fry in the kitchen. It gets rid of smoky odors. It gets rid of the fry odors. We reuse it in rooms for allergies and mildew. We use it in my son's room. He's got terrible allergies. He sleeps with one running through the night. He doesn't wake up with a snoggy nose in the morning anymore. We've seen the real world difference of using this in his closed room at night while he's sleeping, and it really does help him wake up in the morning without snot coming out of his nose. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm, you can go to EdenPureDeals.com. That's Eden like the Garden of Eden. EdenPureDeals.com. And use my name, Erick, E-R-I-C-K, at checkout. These things work. We've got one in our house. Actually, we've got multiples now. Again, Gunnar, my 12-year-old, sleeps with one in his room. When I'm in the kitchen, we don't have a vent system in our kitchen anymore. And so if I'm frying in the kitchen, I run this thing. And it takes care of the odors. Takes care of the mildew. It takes care of the pollen. And again, there are no filters. EdenPureDeals.com is the website. And you'll get 3 and $200 savings. It's $187 if you want 3. You get a $200 savings and you get free shipping. It's a great deal. You put one in your car. If you got an RV, put one in your RV. Put one in individual rooms in your house. Keep one in the kitchen. EdenPureDeals.com. At the bottom of the hour, Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas, is going to join me to talk about the jobs and the economic situation and the Republican pushback from what the Biden administration is doing. I want to read to you real quick some of this. The Federal Reserve is finally beginning to warn about problems with asset valuations. Rising asset prices in the stock market and elsewhere are posing increased threats to the financial system, the Federal Reserve warned in a report Thursday. In its semi-annual financial stability report, the central bank said that while the system overhaul has remained largely stable, even through COVID, future dangers are rising. Investors have snapped up equities, corporate bonds, and cryptocurrency. They've poured billions into blank check companies called SPACs, and the market has been mostly brisk for traditional initial public offerings. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, and others have been asked repeatedly about whether they're concerned about rising prices. Powell specifically has said that as long as interest rates are low, the valuations are justified. However, the report notes there's a danger lurking should market sentiment change. You've got people pouring money into the stock market right now as if it's a slot machine, and they keep getting wins. The good times are going to stop rolling here soon. When interest rates do start to go up, the market's going to come back down. Now, look, I'm not into giving you financial advice, but it really concerns me seeing the way the market is reacting to every news, good and bad, by going up, 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 up. Cryptocurrency markets going up, 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 up. It's troublesome to me that this is happening, that we're seeing this skyrocketing rate here. And there's really no explanation for it other than people got stimulus checks and they're throwing their money into the stock market because they see it going up. And a lot of people forget that what goes up will come down in the stock market. And you make gains slowly over time. These wild fluctuations and speculation in the stock market, they're actually not healthy for the economy, and they're not healthy for the market. They're not healthy for the underlying companies, and they're certainly not healthy for the people who are buying the stocks. If you got some spare cash and you just want to gamble, okay. And I guess a lot of people have spare cash because of the stimulus checks. But we got problems on the horizon. I can see, I am not a financial expert by any means. I got to have people help me. I have a hard time budgeting. But I can see there's a problem. And if I can see it, there's a clearly obvious problem out there on the horizon. And somebody is going to have to do something because we're going to see inflation, among other things. And the moment we get real inflation, and it's happening, and you see it and you hear it from companies around the country, but the Federal Reserve is doing their best not to see it. When they can't not help but see it, we're going to have problems. Coming up, Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas, joins me. Welcome back. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Joining me, the congressman from the great state of Texas, my friend Chip Roy. How are you?
Eric, I'm just doing great. We've got a beautiful day here in Austin, Texas. I'm not in Washington, D.C., so life's pretty good.
Is there ever a bad day in Austin? I mean, even when it rains, it's just pretty awesome.
Well, this happens to be a spectacular day. It's probably 75 degrees, big blue sky, a day God made for us to be outside. And I appreciate you and your show because, you talk a lot about faith, you talk a lot about freedom and the things we're all fighting for and care about. But sometimes you just want to take a step back and look out at God's creation and be happy.
Amen.
Stop, wringing our hands about all this political nonsense.
Well, let me ask you, you bring up Austin, and so let me ask you about this just out of the gate, throw a wild card at you. The Austin City Council decided to allow street camping and turn downtown Austin into a homeless paradise, it seems. And the voters rose up, went to the polls, got the ordinance repealed, and it just seems like the mayor and council there are divided, and we're somehow now saying it's okay that we're just going to let the homeless people sleep on the streets and as a way to abdicate responsibility while saying we're fixing the problem.
Well, look, the Austin City Council is, kind of the vein, if your listeners don't understand it, of San Francisco. Like everybody thinks Texas is, conservative. Your friend and mine, Governor Rick Perry, referred to Austin as the blueberry and the tomato soup for many years. And it's a true depiction of what you're actually dealing with. It's pretty crazy liberal. Now, I happen to represent downtown Austin. I happen to represent South Austin, at least for now, and we'll see what happens in redistricting. But look, the mayor, the city council, they're fully out of step with normal Texas values. Here's what's interesting, though. So our friend Matt Makoviak and some Republicans here in Travis County, I worked hard on it, pushed out the vote. We worked hard to have this vote to restore the camping ban and put that in place. We believe this is pro-homeless, by the way, to not have camping on the streets, right? And so we were advocating for that, and we won. And we won fairly decisively. I don't remember what the final number was, but it was like a 10-point victory. Keep in mind the voters who voted, basically 20% of them were registered Republicans, but 55% were registered Democrats. And of the remaining voters, 75% of them voted in Democrat primaries. So you're talking about 70% of the voters were Democrats. And we won because we're talking about law and order and common sense. We have great programs in Texas that are built on the back of Christian charity to go out and create places to get people off the street, help them get in a home, but also help them have tools to be able to avoid substance abuse and, deal with mental health issues and a lot of the things that plague our homeless community. And obviously we've got some veterans in that too. And that's what we all want, right? As Christians, we want to make sure we're not turning our back on the poor. We're called as Christians to, look out for the least among us. And we know that, and you know that. But the wrong way to do that is to just say, oh, yeah, go ahead and camp on our streets, create a dangerous situation, share needles, have drugs, have, rapes occurring in parks, in danger of the homeless population as well as the citizens of Austin. This is the kind of crazy leftist policies that people recognize are failed, and we need to push back on it hard right now. And I was proud to see Austin push back this time.
I'm glad they did. I've been Christian. The kids want to come over, and I've been a little bit hesitant given the situation. Now I want to shift gears real quick because I don't know if you've heard the jobless numbers came back pretty poorly. It's the worst miss of expectations in 28 or 29 years. And the Biden administration is in the last 15 minutes has said this means that we need to continue and possibly extend unemployment benefits to people when you've got a lot of economists and employers saying actually it's the extension of unemployment benefits that's keeping people from coming back.
Yeah, literally, whatever the Biden administration says, do the opposite, and our country will thrive. That is the rule, because that's literally what we're seeing unfold before our eyes, right? If you wanted to have danger to your communities and danger to immigrants, you would have a wide open border policy like they have. If you wanted to kill jobs and kill economic growth, you spend $6 trillion over the last year and pay people not to work. When I go around the district I represent and throughout the state of Texas, the number one problem for small businesses is no longer COVID. It's that they can't hire people. Every single restaurant, every single small businesses, what are they doing? They have help wanted signs up. They are posting on their website. Go click on any website. You're going to see a window pop up that says, we We need labor. We need help. How is that possible, right? Oh, we need more unemployment benefits. No, we need workers.
Right.
We need to have an economy growing and thriving. We need to stop telling people to be afraid of a virus. Go out, get your vaccine, or live off your antibodies if you had the virus. So I was one of those that got the virus in January. So go forward, get out in the community and go engage and buy stuff and sell stuff. That's how our economy works. But no, the wisdom from D.C. is let's just keep paying people not to work because they want to have socialized welfare. That's their goal. So we're going to have to push back on that and frankly use these numbers to demonstrate why Democrat policies are literally killing the backbone of the American economy and small businesses.
While you and I are sitting here discussing this, Paul Krugman is right now on Twitter saying maybe it's the data that's wrong. Maybe the unemployment number is wrong, and we need to rethink how we're doing the data collection.
It's just, you can't make this up, Eric. I mean, in all seriousness, right? This stuff matters. Like, I don't pretend to know what the exact right corporate tax rate should be or individual rates. I don't pretend to know all the, specific policies. We can have those debates, spending and how to balance budget. But guys, this economy works and literally fuels the world if you let it. That was the great thing we learned in the Reagan era and even the Trump era as well, in terms of getting regulations out of the way, having a tax policy that creates economic growth. Then you have uncompared growth, and we drive the world, and everything's great. And then you have a virus, and they say, okay, let's just throw out every principle we've ever understood about how this country works. And that's the Democratic model. And, I'm always loath to say, oh, let's go just focus on Republicans taking back the House and so forth, because then it's an excuse for Republicans to be wimpy. But we do have to focus very much right now on getting Democrats out of power. But in doing so, we need to make sure we're advocating a vision that people want to get behind.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about that vision. I am, while I like Liz Cheney, and we've always had a cordial relationship, I don't know her well. It seems like your job is to, as the Republican conference chair, unite the party behind a common message. And the common message the Republicans are united behind is maybe it's time for you to step aside. And it seems like we've got the media focusing on this issue to avoid focusing on everything else. And it's become a distraction from us being able to actually have a winning message in 2022.
I'm 100% with you there, and it's a real problem. I think Liz is, she's going to have to reconcile herself with the fact that she's going to be stepping down, I think, next week. If she doesn't resign, she's going to be voted out of office. And, look, my view on this is pretty simple. She has a job to do to reflect the conference, and she is, I think, unwisely and unstrategically basically forfeited her ability to be the chair. There was a way to talk about the vision of going forward in this country without focusing on the election that we could have all rallied around, and it was what my hope was in February. But she, unfortunately chose battles that I think were a foolish path, and so now she's going to no longer be the chair. So I think that's fine. Let's move on. Now the question is, what do we do next? And I believe we need to focus on a forward-looking vision and not backward-looking. And look, I'm going to be blunt here. Elise Stefanik, who everyone in the leadership is now pushing, and even the former president back, is not that. Right. I mean, her voting record is atrocious. She literally opposed the president's litigation strategy on Obamacare. She literally was on the bad side of immigration in 2017 in opposing the strong border security bills that would have given us strong border security, that resulted in a lot of Americans throwing the House Republicans out on their ear, which ultimately resulted in impeachment. She voted for H.R. 5, the Equality Act. I am go down a laundry list of things. She voted to overturn the Trump's ban on the transgender stuff in the military. It's a really striking voting record. And it's unfortunate that the leadership wants to go down that road. That's not the message we want to send. We need a clear message and a vision of limited government, of getting the government out of our way to allow the American people to go thrive, to get economic growth back, to have a strong border that we believe is pro-America, pro-immigrant, anti-cartel, stand with Israel, have strong judges, just frankly rebuild and make sure that this country is carrying forward in our core American values, especially as you look forward to 2026 when we're going to be celebrating our 250th birthday as a nation. Let's go back to the things that we know work for us, which is faith in God, limited government, following the Constitution and the rule of law, but importantly, empowering the people. And I don't believe that's what we're hearing out of this current, leadership squabble. Let's stop focusing on that. Let's just go forward and lead.
Amen to that. And I think there's the way to lead is one. I see Democrats repeatedly ridiculing us for highlighting their cultural absurdities, from wanting to ban burgers to this thing yesterday of all the Democrats in that hearing referring to birthing people instead of to moms in the run up to Mother's Day. And it seems to me that you and I don't know anyone outside of liberals in Congress who use the word Latinx. And the American people, I think, actually are kind of clued in on the fact that this is all sort of nutty stuff. And we're not the culture fighters here. We're just defending American culture. And it does seem to me that there is a cultural play here, as we've seen it resonate with Black and Hispanic voters moving towards the GOP because of this insanity on the left.
I was at an event in Austin last night with Vice President Pence. Back up and see him again today at an event where we've got a number of folks here. We got Ron DeSantis coming talking to a group here. Governor Abbott's going to be speaking. We've got a number of other high-profile folks. Mike Pompeo's in here right now talking when I stepped out. Why do I bring that up? Because when we were talking about these issues last night, in broad sense, you think about why President Trump was popular, why he is popular, particularly among Republican actors, but in general. Think about what we did in South Texas, right? We won areas of South Texas that we haven't ever won, that we haven't won, in ways in terms of inspiring Hispanic voters, really in the history of the Republican Party. Why? Because, frankly, most Americans, regardless of what their background is, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their sex, and there is, in fact, two sexes, in case anybody's wondering, they want to believe in their country, but they want people to be straight. They want people to do what they said they were going to do. They want people to just be to exercise common sense, right? That there is man, there is woman, that we do have mothers, that we do, have a obligation to not have homeless encampments in the capital city of Texas, that we should have, in fact, a secure border as a sovereign nation, that, of course, reflects our values of wanting immigrants to come to the United States, but is secure and not run by cartels. That, of course, we don't want China to overrun us and overtake us and have a complete stranglehold on our, medical supply. That, of course, we want to have schools that don't teach critical race theory and that don't teach that God doesn't exist. That we just want to be able to go about our lives and be able to go forward without, frankly, the poor getting left ostracized out and unable to have options because rich liberal elites tell them how they have to live their lives. Most Americans believe all that. And frankly, President Trump said a lot of that stuff, and they said, well, amen. And so Republicans need to remember that. But we need to be able to continue that message going forward in a way that builds with a vision rather than, frankly, focuses backwards on last November.
Amen to that. Well, listen, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I've got more to say on Elise Stefanik, but I'm not going to have you stick around and get you tied to what I'm going to say. But I appreciate very much you saying what you said, and we got redistricting on our side. We've got the American people tired of this cultural woke nonsense on our side, and it looks like we're going to have economic calamity because of Biden's policies on our side, unfortunately, and I can't believe that we're here fighting internally within the Republican Party yet again, or at least having the media provoke us to do it.
Well, we wouldn't be Republicans if we weren't looking to find every way possible to, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, as they say. But look, there's a lot of us who get it. We're out there talking about the right things. We're going to keep doing it. You keep doing what you're doing. Give my best to your beautiful bride and family, and have me on next week, and we'll keep going.
I'll do it. Thanks, man. It's always good to hear from you. Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. Bye. Glad to have him with me. I got to say this. He actually is a very dear friend, and he is somewhat here intentionally because he realizes I've been getting worn out doing as much as I've been doing on radio of lately, and so he stepped up and said, just have me on all the time and talk. So he's a good friend, and he's right. And I want to talk about Elise Stefanik because I think the GOP is about to make a terrible mistake, and you should know why when we come back.
Want to be on the show? Call Eric now.
Hello and welcome back. It's Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. One of the signature achievements of Donald Trump's administration was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 that allowed American corporations to repatriate piles of cash, give their employees major bonuses, and fired up the economy without using federal tax dollars. A increasingly prominent Republican voted against it. This same Republican voted for amnesty, voted for the Dream Act for the Dreamers, voted against both of the Goodlatte immigration reform plans. One was fairly conservative, one was fairly moderate. Voted to terminate President Trump's emergency declaration to fund the wall. Voted to override President Trump's funding of the wall. Condemned President Trump for filing a lawsuit to end Obamacare. Voted to override President Trump's transgender troop policy. Supported the Far Left Equality Act. Supported the Climate Action Now Act, the far left environmentalist policy that would wreck the American economy. Voted to override President Trump's veto of the NDAA, the defense legislation. Voted to ban drilling in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Voted for the Democrats' fever dream legislation of the Delivering for America Act that was part of their push to claim that the president was trying to destroy the post office. Voted to fund the Department of Homeland Security without money for the border wall. Voted to block funding of the border wall. And co-sponsored the Fairness for All Act, another left-wing fever dream piece of legislation. The person who did all of that is Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik voted for all these left-wing ideas and voted against many conservative ideas of the Trump administration. I wonder if President Trump knows that she voted against his tax cuts plan. I wonder if President Trump knows she voted against his border wall plan. I wonder if President Trump knows she voted for amnesty. I wonder if President Trump knows she voted to oppose his lawsuit against Obamacare. I wonder if President Trump knows Elise Stefanik voted to override his transgender troop policy. I wonder if President Trump knows she voted for the Far Left Equality Act and the Climate Action Now Act and the Delivering for America Act and the Fairness for All Act and the NDAA, and on it goes. I wonder if President Trump knows that. I bet he doesn't. And that's part of the problem we're dealing with here, is that the president has people around him who advise him on these things, and they don't necessarily know. He doesn't necessarily know. He doesn't necessarily have the background, and they do, and they haven't shared it with him. Why is Kevin McCarthy pushing her? Why is Kevin McCarthy supporting Elise Stefanik? Why is Kevin McCarthy doing this? I don't care about Liz Cheney at this moment. It's clear she's not going to be around for a while, but why is Elise Stefanik the replacement when she opposed all of the major initiatives of Donald Trump? This seems like something that should be a big freaking deal for everybody, right? It seems like something that people should focus on, right? Why is Stefanik the chosen one when she opposed every single thing out of the Trump administration that you like? Why are we allowing Kevin McCarthy to sell Donald Trump on Elise Stefanik? You guys, are you in favor of amnesty? Because she is. Are you in favor of the persecution of churches in America? Because she is. Are you in favor of getting rid of President Trump's tax cuts? Because she is. Are you in favor of expanding the post office's reach in America? Because she is. Are you in favor of cutting all the funding for the border wall? Because she is. Everything that the president supported, every major signature initiative of his administration, Elise Stefanik voted against. Why would they put her in as conference chair? That's a question that these people need to answer, because this is a big warning flag for me that she's probably not the person for the job. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. Delighted to have you with me across the nation. The phone number, if you'd like to be a part of this program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I am going to have something out on Elise Stefanik's record here shortly. Just so you understand, this isn't about Liz Cheney. This is now about Elise Stefanik. Why is the GOP advocating for her to be in leadership as a replacement to Cheney? Surely they can find someone who didn't oppose the president's signature initiatives. Let me just review this for you. I'm going to have this out here shortly. If you go to my Substack page, if you text data to 33777, you'll get the link. I'll have it there shortly for you to see. I'll make it available to everyone. Elise Stefanik the President Trump is now supporting her to replace Liz Cheney. I don't know that President Trump understands the problem here. Elise Stefanik is a deeply problematic person to replace Liz Cheney because though the party has soured on Liz Cheney, she is ultimately far more conservative than Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik has been on the wrong side of every major Trump administration initiative. She voted against President Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the signature piece of economic legislation that fired up the economy. She co-sponsored a pathway for dreamers and amnesty called the USA Act. She not only voted against funding President Trump's border wall, she voted to terminate his emergency declaration to fund the border wall and to override his funding of the border wall. In fact, she voted 6 times to fund the government without money for the border wall. But it's not just taxes and the border wall. She opposed President Trump's lawsuit to fight Obamacare. She voted to override President Trump's ban on transgender troops. She voted for the far-left Equality Act that punishes faith-based organizations. She voted for the radical Climate Action Now Act that would cripple the economy and force us back into the Paris Climate Accord. She voted to ban drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. She voted to override President Trump's veto of the National Defense Authorization Act in late 2020. She even voted with Democrats against a Republican measure opposing the District of Columbia's abortion law. Why would you put this person in leadership? Why is Kevin McCarthy supporting her? Why did he convince Donald Trump to support her? What the heck is going on here? This is not a good thing. Let's go to the phones on this particular issue. Kelly in Flagstaff, Arizona, you're going to be up next. Welcome.
Hello, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You were talking about Liz Cheney and Stefanik there, and I see a problem with politics in general. Is right now you got to have a woman for that position, and I think that's why Stefanik's name keeps popping up. And Liz Cheney, you know, she's really not from Wyoming. She was born there, but I don't know.
Yeah, look, it's the Cheney dynasty. I mean, it's the name Cheney. And look, I know Liz. I know her parents have moved back to Wyoming. And now she's got a home there as well. They're raising their kids there. But yeah, she had kind of grew up in Washington with her dad's career.
Right, and I don't think she understands that the Republican Party that of her dad's isn't the same Republican Party as today, and she's in trouble.
Yeah,
and as far as
go ahead.
Stefanik goes, she's I don't know, she's a New York City Republican, and I don't know if you can trust her.
Yeah, this is the problem here. Look, if people say Liz Cheney is not connected to the Trump Republican Party, Elise Stefanik clearly is not connected to the Trump Republican Party. I mean, she voted against every single one of his major initiatives.
Right. What can you get her on your show and ask her about these things?
Yeah, you know,
I want to hear how she's going to explain herself out of that.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. So I'm going to flag this stuff as well. Make sure Tucker Carlson sees it, because that would be an interesting thing for him to wade into, given his criticisms of late of Kevin McCarthy as well.
Right.
I bet he has no idea. Listen, thank you very much for your phone call. How is Flagstaff? You know, my family's been dying to get back out there. We went to Sedona, I guess, 2 years ago, and we actually went up to Flagstaff on the way to the Grand Canyon and hung out there just because it's so dark at night. I can see the stars, and they could see the Milky Way.
Yes, you can. We're a dark city, I guess.
Yeah, it's classified. So you guys, for people who don't know, and I'm actually fascinated by this, you guys in Flagstaff actually, your city council went through and changed out all the lights on the streets so that they don't reflect up into the sky so people can actually look up and see the stars at night. I was fascinated by that.
Yeah, there's an observatory here, but the light has gotten so bright anyway, whether they've done it, that you can go to the observatory and see things at night, but they actually moved the main telescope way out onto a mountain somewhere, get it away from the light. So, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting deal. You can see the stars at night.
I was amazed. I had never been out there. I had never been to Arizona until we went out there and on the way to the Grand Canyon. And I actually thought the Sedona to Flagstaff area was prettier than the Grand Canyon, which apparently you're not supposed to say. It makes people mad.
Well, yeah, it's pretty nice. We enjoy it.
Yeah, it is. Well, listen, thank you very much for the phone call. Have a great weekend. I'm for those of you who don't know, Flagstaff is up. The elevation for Flagstaff is very high. You don't think of Arizona, I think, as being that high, but it is. And they changed out the street lights in the last 2 years because Flagstaff is certified as a dark sky city, meaning that at night you can see the Milky Way unaided because it's so bright. And the noise pollution or the light pollution was drowning out the stars. They've got a big observatory there, as he said. And they swapped out all the light bulbs, made them so that I forget exactly what type of light bulb they are, but they're the red halogen style bulbs that cause the red glow at night. They got rid of all that stuff. So you can go to Flagstaff, Arizona, and you can look up and see the stars in a way you can't where I am in Macon or where most people are in downtown, even in towns. You can't. So I love taking my telescope out at night. This is so far off every topic, but he called for Flagstaff. I'm going to talk about this for a minute. I can take my telescope out at night in my backyard, and I can see pretty good. I put pictures up occasionally. I haven't done it in a while. I need to get back to it. The trees have grown so high in the last few years where we live. It's hard to get out there and see stuff, but I love to go out at night and look at the stars. When I was a kid, I grew up in Dubai, and we would go camping in the desert for the scouts, or my dad and I would. You'd get out into the wadis of the Middle East, well away from the city lights of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and you could see everything. Particularly if you went when the moon wasn't shining, you could see everything. It was amazing. And you sit out there at night, you can watch shooting stars. This is why I like to go to Hilton Head, by the way, because it's on the beach. It tends to get dark, and you can sit there. I can sit in the hot tub at midnight and watch shooting stars out over the ocean. I love to watch the stars at night. It's what I did as a kid. And in urban areas, less and less can you do that. I'll never forget taking a friend of mine with me to Hilton Head, and we went out on the beach. The moon was not shining, and he had never seen anything like it. And it's one of those things. I don't know that you can appreciate it because you don't quite understand. You live in an area, I can see the stars at night, like I'm in Macon, Georgia. I can stand in my cul-de-sac and I can see the stars. It is a completely different thing when you go to Sedona and Flagstaff, Arizona. It's even different from Hilton Head because it's so much darker, because they've done such a good job getting rid of the city lights so that you can look up at night and you can see all of God's creation. It is just staggering to look up and see that. It's a treat to be able to do that, to take your kids far out west where there aren't a lot of city lights and take them outside at night and say, see that big band right there? That's the Milky Way. And it's incredible. All right, we should move on because I didn't intend to dwell on that. The President of the United States, I don't believe that Joe Biden is not in control. I reject the premise that Joe Biden is not in control, in large part because the stereotype of Joe Biden is he's a grumpy old granddad who falls asleep. Occasionally he moves very slow in his thoughts. Clearly this guy's not up to it, but I mean, you saw him at the joint address to Congress. You see him at his press conferences. He is old. He does wear down, but I don't think he's not in control. I do think, however, that Biden's staffing is further left than he is, and they do steer him more because he is as old as he is. He makes the final call. It's kind of like the left had this idea about Donald Trump that he wasn't in charge. It was all these other people around him. And actually, every single person I know, from the president himself to the vice president to his staffers, were very adamant that, yes, Donald Trump made the final call on a host of things. And one of the internal staff battles was constantly people ignoring him and his authority because they didn't want to do what he wanted to do. And he would force the issue, very famously moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The president gave them no choice and made them do it, and it was his call. And I don't want to do to Biden what the left did to Donald Trump. Didn't think that was right. I don't think this is right. But I do think there is a level of staff involvement with Biden, and they have helped push him left, and they have convinced him it's where he's going to make the most difference, and it's where they've convinced him he's going to rally the Democratic Party because they think there are more wokes and progressives than there are conservatives, and they don't really need the conservatives who still inhabit the Democratic Party, and that's going to have fundamental problems to them. But I just thought it was very interesting. He issued a proclamation on the 70th Annual National Day of Prayer and decided to talk about climate change and not actually talk about God. Throughout our history, Americans of many religions and belief systems have turned to prayer for strength, hope, and guidance. Prayer has nourished countless souls and powered moral movements, including essential fights against racial injustice, child labor, and the infringement of the rights of disabled Americans. Prayer is also a daily practice for many, whether it is to ask for help or strength or to give thanks over blessings bestowed. Today, we remember and celebrate the role that the healing balm of prayer can play in our lives and in the life of our nation. As we continue to confront the crises and challenges of our time, from a deadly pandemic to the loss of lives and livelihoods in its wake, to a reckoning on racial justice, to the existential threat of climate change, Americans of faith can call upon the power of prayer to provide hope and uplift us for the work ahead. As the late Congressman John Lewis once said, nothing can stop the power of a committed and determined people to make a difference in our society. Why? Because human beings are the most dynamic link to the divine on this planet. There is no reference to the Creator, to God, to any of that. It's just somehow prayer fuels some level of, even Barack Obama mentioned God. Donald Trump mentioned God 11 times. Barack Obama mentioned him twice, but he still mentioned him. It's striking. This is Barack Obama. On this day, may our faiths enable us to sow the seeds of progress in our ever-changing world. Let us resolve to guide our children and grandchildren to embrace freedom for all, to see God in everyone, and to remember that no matter what differences they may have, they, just like us, will always be united by their common humanity. And he also asked that people of faith pray for God's continued guidance, mercy, and protection. Prayer in and of itself doesn't do jack. Prayer does nothing if there's no one on the other side to listen. Maybe you should mention the one who's listening.
You can follow Erick around social media at
Welcome back. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Let's go to the phones. Bill calling from Woodstock, Georgia. Welcome.
Hey, Eric, it's been a while since we talked. Love the show. I ventured back into church for the first time since March of 2020. Now, I did go to the Easter service, which was outside. But when I got back into my traditional service and they started playing the old hymns from the church I grew up in as a child, it put me to tears because it made me realize this is where I need to focus. And the people staying at home and listening to great radio shows like yours, we are substituting, unfortunately, politics for religion. And we're becoming just like the wokes who don't have hope in the future, and they want it all here on earth. And so anyway, getting back to church has helped me put into perspective the horrible happenings of this administration, the potential wars, and gosh, I got to tell you, if you can get back to church, do it. I would encourage it.
Yeah,
I was a blubbering idiot.
I
don't even remember the hymn we were singing, but I was a blubbering idiot.
Well, I gotta confess, it is hard to get back in the habit, and we as a family are struggling. And it's kind of funny. My 15-year-old she hasn't really been engaged with church in the way I wish, and it's like church group and stuff before COVID, and we never pushed her. And the reason we didn't push her is I felt, and no offense if my mom is listening, but I really felt like my parents pushed me so hard that I just kind of rebelled, and I didn't want anything to do with it when I was a kid. I mean, I was a married man before I wanted to go to Sunday school, and my kids, I didn't want to push them because I didn't want them to rebel and turn off to it. And even my daughter, last Sunday, because we didn't go because we had people in the house were sick, and she's like, I think I'm ready to go back to church. And I'm like, yeah, I am too. I hate with my schedule right now that I'm working as much as I am. I want to sleep in on Saturday and Sunday. I don't want to do it, but at the same time, my soul is just I'm out of sorts, and I know that I need to get back into church.
I had to make an appointment to do it, and then there were thousands of reasons of why I decided I don't want to go. And my wife said, "You made an appointment, you go." And boy, I'm really glad I did. This weekend I'm not going because I'm going to spend the weekend on the river in the mountains.
Oh well,
and that's
soul nourishing there, man. You know what, Bill? Yeah. So I've got I feel a lot of guilt these days that I don't spend enough time with my family. And so I've had a number of people invite me to go fly fishing because I've done it once now. I've got the gear. I bought myself some rods. I want to go up to the mountains. I got a buddy whose family has a farm up on the Chattahoochee right outside Helen. And I just keep feeling like I can't leave my family because I'm working so much, and I'm dying at the same time to go. And the amount of guilt I have right now just piled on top of me for we hadn't been to church. I want to spend time with my family, but I really want to go do this, and they can't come with me. And I'm having a hard time sorting it all out in my head.
Did you catch anything the last time you went?
Okay. So, yes and no. I caught a very big trout, and it snapped the line, and that was as close as I got to one. It was my very first time fishing. So we were up on the Chattahoochee, just right outside Helen, not 2 miles from downtown Helen. And I'm in the river. And by the way, I got to say, I've figured out why old people like fly fishing. That cold water made my bones and joints feel better than anything in a long time. And I'm standing up there, and there's a family that has a fish feeder that automatically sprays. And so the fish are always in that location. And gosh, I got one. I was with my buddy David, who's I won't call him a professional, but he's a brilliant photographer, does a lot of work for Cabela Bass Pro and the like, doing their fly fishing shooting. And so he's the one who pushed me to go, gave me no choice, told me I'm going. So I went, and we were pulling this thing up, and my gosh, the line snaps, and it was a big one. And all I've got is exactly. All I've got is a fish story now. And my wife's like, "You're lying. It was tiny." And even my buddy Dave is like, "No, it was actually really big, and it was my fault that the line snapped." So it's like, at least he's blaming himself for my line snapping.
Yeah. So listen, I'm praying for you by name.
Well,
and
thank you.
Tonight, when I'm sitting by the river with some bourbon and a cigar, I'll be thinking about you.
Well, look, I
Good
appreciate
luck
it
with
so
the-
much.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it, Bill. Thanks for the kind words. Have a great weekend. It almost makes me, I need to, so, Clarksville, Georgia, we're on WCHM in Clarksville, Georgia, and I had never been to Northeast Georgia until we got the station up there in Habersham County in that area, and decided I need to go up there and see this place. And they invited me up to a Chamber of Commerce event in downtown Clarksville. And that area, I've been up there now, there into Lake Burton, and it is just God's country. It is beautiful in that part of the state. And I would love to find a cabin either on Lake Burton, or probably can't afford that, or just right on a river somewhere and go up there and fly fish. Man, it would be fantastic. I really have enjoyed it. It's not relaxing at all. It's fishing, but it's fun. I like that. It is Erick Erickson here. Welcome back. The phone number, if you want to be part of the program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. It is done, and you can get it. Listen, you need to see this. I'm a big believer that I shouldn't tell you what to think. I should give you the facts and let you make up your mind. I want you to see this for yourself. I have put in all of the relevant links to all of the votes so you can see that I'm not making it up. If you text data to 33777, you will get Elise Stefanik's voting record. I have just written about it. You go to my Substack newsletter. I will send you the link back. If you text the word data to 33777, you can see her voting record. Elise Stefanik voted repeatedly against the president's signature initiatives. Elise Stefanik voted against the president time and time again. She voted against his tax cuts. She voted against his emergency declaration. She voted against, time and time again, she voted against the president. Why would we put her in a leadership position? Text the word data to 33777. See her votes. You can follow the links yourself. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm providing you facts. I'm providing you information. If you text the word data to 33777, you'll also get my link to critical theory. What is critical theory? How does critical theory work? How does the left talk about it? It is actually, it's just crazy what her voting record is. This woman literally, and listen, by the way, let me just say this because she is a very nice person. She is, personally. But a very nice person personally can be liberal or moderate. It doesn't mean that they are fit for leadership. She voted 6 times to fund the government without funding the border wall. She voted to oppose the president's funding of the border wall. She voted to rescind the president's declaration of an emergency to fund the border wall. She voted to override the president's use of defense funds to fund the border wall. She voted for the Dreamers. She voted for amnesty. She voted for agricultural amnesty. She voted against conservative immigration reform. She voted with the Democrats to force us back into the Paris Accord. She voted with the Democrats on the Equality Act. Time and time again, Elise Stefanik has voted against President Trump. Why would Republicans put her in leadership? Why would they do that? Why would they sell Donald Trump on this? This sounds like it is the Republican elites swindling Donald Trump. He's in Florida, not surrounded by his White House staff, doesn't have her voting record handy, and Kevin McCarthy goes down there and sweet talks Donald Trump into supporting Elise Stefanik, who turns out to be further left than Liz Cheney. This is the singular irony of this whole situation. Liz Cheney voted for Donald Trump's agenda more than Elise Stefanik, and somehow the Republican leaders in the House have swindled Donald Trump into convincing him he should support Stefanik over Cheney. And listen, Cheney's going to go. Cheney's out. Next week, she's going to be booted out. Why would you replace her with someone who's more liberal? Why would you replace her with someone who doesn't have the president's back? Why would you replace her with someone who is less likely to vote for Donald Trump than Liz Cheney? I have no earthly idea. Text the word data to 33777. See it for yourself. See the data for yourself. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word for it. I have included all the votes. You can click the links and see the votes for yourself. Now, we need to move on. I don't know if you know this or not, but the whisper campaigns have started about Ron DeSantis. This is just kind of silly. Ron DeSantis is looking ahead to re-election next year and quite possibly a 2024 bid for president, according to Politico's playbook, which has become increasingly leftist. This is from Politico. We talked to a dozen or so one-time aides and consultants to the Florida governor, and they all said the same thing. DeSantis treats staff like expendable widgets. He largely relies on a brain trust of 2, himself and his wife, Casey DeSantis, a former local TV journalist. Beyond that, there are few, if any, DeSantis people as far as political pros are concerned. Yes, DeSantis recently hired highly regarded operative Phil Cox, but there's no savant that he's been through the trenches with, like a Karl Rove or a David Axelrod, let alone an army of loyalists. That's probably not fatal to his White House prospects, but it can't help. Here are a few key nuggets. A support group of former DeSantis staffers meets regularly to trade war stories about their hardship working for the governor. The turnover in his office and among his campaign advisors is well known among Republicans. In 3 of his 5 full years in Congress, he ranked in at least the 70th percentile in terms of highest turnover in a House office. In the governor's office, he has had only 2 staffers who started with him when he was a junior member of Congress. Within 6 months of taking office as governor in 2019, DeSantis fired 5 staffers. One was a 23-year-old scheduler who'd been with him since the beginning of the gubernatorial race. Shortly after she was sent packing, an unnamed member of DeSantis' administration was quoted in a Florida blog trashing her performance. A month later, his deputy chief of staff left, prompting Florida reporters to press him about the rapid churn of his operation. Another story relayed to us by 5 former staffers. At the beginning of his administration, DeSantis directed the Florida GOP leader to fire a party officer who had cancer on that person's first week back from surgery. DeSantis often blames his staff for his own blunders. After DeSantis went on Fox News in 2018 and implored Florida voters not to monkey this up by supporting an African-American Democratic opponent for governor, he and his wife chewed out his campaign staff for not cleaning up the mess. And then he brought in a whole new group of advisors. Aides would lure DeSantis to staff meetings with cupcakes, saying it was a colleague's birthday to get him to attend. In the gubernatorial primary, DeSantis visited his campaign headquarters just a couple of times. On election night, he entered the war room after his win and remarked, "Wow, I didn't know this many people worked for me." Whoop-de-freaking-do. Let me tell you what is going on. DeSantis is finally starting to see Republican whisper campaigns against him. They know he's going to win his reelection bid. They know he's going to win. They know he's going to run in 2024. Let me tell you what I've been told by multiple people. The president, Donald Trump, continues to talk about 2024 because it gives him power in 2022 to settle scores. He wants to beat Liz Cheney in Wyoming. He wants to beat Brian Kemp in Georgia and Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. He's got a number of people who with scores to settle. If he says he's not running in 2024, his clout as leader of the party begins to diminish. Through 2022, as long as he keeps up the facade of running in 2024, he's the most powerful man in the Republican Party. But behind the scenes, there is growing doubt that the president wants to run again in 2024. He'll be Joe Biden's age. The left is still coming to sue him constantly. There are people who think maybe he's just not going to want to run in 2024. And they know that if he lays hands on DeSantis as the guy, DeSantis is going to be unstoppable. So they're trying to rough him up at this moment before his 2022 campaign, knowing he's going to win in 2022. But if it's closer than it could be, they can begin to sow doubts about DeSantis in 2024. There are a lot of staffers DeSantis has hired, fired, or never hired at all. And by the way, some of this is true. DeSantis apparently is a very tough person to work for. That doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean he's a terrible governor. In fact, his results speak for himself. It means he's makes strong demands, high demands. He can be difficult to work for. A lot of people in politics are. And those people he hired and fired or never hired at all are starting to align with other people. They're starting to align with other candidates. They're starting to align with other potential 2024 prospects. And they're whispering about DeSantis now. I told you guys a couple of weeks ago that I would start believing the hits on DeSantis when they came from the GOP. Well, they're starting to come from the GOP. Why are they starting to come from the GOP? I know the answer. There's been some private polling done. DeSantis will be the nominee in 2024 if they can't start reining him in now. In fact, there are some close to the president who believe they themselves need to whisper about DeSantis, lest DeSantis get big enough that he may challenge Donald Trump for the nomination in 2024 if Trump wins or runs. But more so than that, there are a whole lot of Republican candidates who want to run, who see DeSantis as already beginning to lock up the 2024 Republican donors. They need to stop that now so that they can have the money to run against him in 2024. And the best way to do that is to begin the slow walk of roughing DeSantis up. The whispers now of staffers become on-the-record conversations later, become fodder for the press, become fodder for campaign ads. They are desperate to stop DeSantis. And right now, the way they're going about it is he's a difficult person to work for. Do any of you care? The governor of Florida reopened his state. The governor of Florida got things gone. The governor of Florida got things reopened. The governor of Florida stimulated their economy. The governor of Florida got people back into schools. The governor of Florida has built interracial allegiances in Florida and alliances in Florida. The governor of Florida has advanced where other governors have not. There's only one other governor in the nation whose economy is outperforming Florida right now. That's the governor of Georgia, who opened before DeSantis did. But Florida's fired up, ready to go. People are noticing. The latest election polling for DeSantis a year away, and it is polling, so we don't know that it's accurate, but he's got a bipartisan support. Even Democrats are supporting him. Democrats really don't like Charlie Crist. He was a useful opportunist for them when it came to that congressional district, but otherwise the Democrats, there's no love lost there between Florida Democrats and Charlie Crist. He had been their Republican nemesis for a while. And on it goes. So the Republicans who want to run in 2024, they got to stop DeSantis now. And they begin with the whispers. The whispers will go to more news, and the media will love it because they hate DeSantis. Why? Because he thus far has positioned himself pretty strategically as the one person who can unite the non-Trump and Trump wings of the GOP.
Want to be on the show? Call Eric now at 877-
Hi there, it's Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I want to wish all the moms in the audience, all the birthing people, wow, all the mothers, happy Mother's Day. My wife is a real hero to me, and we're fortunate she can stay home with the kids and build memories with the kids, given her health. And I feel like I'm sometimes just a terrible husband. And lately I really have, just because I've been so overwhelmed with work. And I'm glad the light is at the end of the tunnel for these last couple of months. They've been a distraction. I feel like I've been off my game with my family and stuff, but it's remarkable to me to see my wife in action with our kids and building memories and helping them. And so I just, moms are amazing. My wife is amazing. My wife has a Harley, and she got a package yesterday from a company from Wisconsin. The company's name is Go Fast, Don't, or Ride Fast, Don't Die. It's a motorcycle place. I hope you take care of your mom for Mother's Day, or your wife for Mother's Day. I really hope you'll consider Omaha Steaks. You can go to omahasteaks.com. You can put Georgia in the search bar, and you'll see the Let's Go Grill package. It's time to get your family back together and start building memories again. It's safe to, and you should. You go to omahasteaks.com, you put Georgia in the search bar, you'll get boneless chicken breasts, boneless skinless chicken breasts, pork chops, sausages. You'll get their butcher cut fillets, which are hugely popular. You'll get scalloped potatoes. You'll get caramel apple tartlets. They're individually wrapped. You can bake them as you want them. We get some for my wife. She loves them. They don't have nutmeg in them. She can't eat nutmeg, so she really likes them. She puts them in the oven just individually. She wants a snack, gets them in the oven. She loves them. They're in this package, and you get 12 burgers for free. 12 free burgers from Omaha Steaks. That's almost 4 pounds of burgers, and they're steak burgers. They're a blend. They're not just your standard grocery store ground chuck that's going to shrink up on you. So go to omahasteaks.com today. Put Georgia in the search bar. Get this package. Make your mom something delicious for Mother's Day. Grill her a steak. I'll make my wife cornflake chicken. It's one of her favorites. You melt butter, put Cajun seasoning in it. Use Tony Chachere's. And you dip the chicken in it. Then you roll them in crushed cornflakes. You put them in a baking dish, pour the excess butter on, stick them in a preheated oven at 350 for about 50 minutes. Comes out tender and good. It's just spicy, buttery, crunchy. It's just all the best. But omahasteaks.com, Georgia in the search bar. And we are, this is one of my frustrations with the birthing people comment. Look, I'm still flabbergasted by this, and many of you don't believe me. I'm getting emails still about this. I'm going to play this montage one more time, and this isn't intended to be filler. This blew my mind. It is an actual congressional hearing, and these are the Democrats. You know, Nancy Pelosi said she wanted to degender the language of the House of Representatives. And so it's now, instead of talking about mothers, it's birthing people the Democrats are talking about.
As we go into Mother's Day weekend, let us recommit our efforts and support to ensure that every birthing person across this nation is empowered and feels safe.
We have not created an infrastructure to support birthing people.
All pregnant and birthing people deserve to be treated with love.
Birthing while Black should not be a death sentence.
Health equity for Black birthing people is attainable.
Mothers and babies and Black birthing people are important.
We desperately need long-term fixes to support the healthcare needs of Black women and birthing people.
The most marginalized Black and Indigenous birthing people.
To systemically shift the way we approach health care for birthing people of color.
And respectful of Black women and birthing people.
The maternal mortality crisis among Black birthing people in the United States.
Black birthing people.
And birthing people.
For birthing people.
Black birthing people.
And our Black birthing persons. For all birthing persons in Louisiana.
That birthing people want doulas and midwives.
And support for birthing people during the postpartum period.
There are not enough Black workers of color, leaving Black birthing people with limited autonomy or opportunity to receive racially concordant care.
Protect Black birthing people and to save lives. Thank you, and I yield back.
Birthing people, Black birthing people. It's like it's your job. Hey, Mom, did you know your job was to be a birthing person? It's so disrespectful. It's just disrespectful. It's like Latinx. Latinx is which rhymes with Kleenex. It's a disrespectful term because no one in the Latino community uses it. Spanish makes the word impossible. In the Hispanic community, there is not a word like that. Most of the world's Romance languages use male and female nouns. La and le in French. That's the one I grew up speaking. La and le. La is the female. Le is the male. Why they do this, I don't know the historic etymology for using male and female nouns, but they do. And Spanish do as well. The Italians do. A lot of the Romance languages derived from Latin do this, and it makes zero sense to disrespect someone's culture by trying to negate the gender. It's disrespectful to mothers to call them birthing people because you want to peddle a mythology that a man can give birth and menstruate, which is what they want to do. This is their claim now, and it's just not true. It is simply not true. It is not true. And yet it's what they push. And I do think that this stuff matters. If you're a progressive and you're listening to me right now, why are you harping on this? This stuff is what wins Republicans elections, whether you want to believe it or not, because there are a whole lot of people who don't think either side really is that much different on economic matters. But on this stuff, there's a massive difference. And it helps Republicans with Hispanic voters and Black voters and so many more. It is just a disgusting term, birthing person. 15. And it's what the Democrats have decided to embrace, and it will be a cultural issue that works against them.